So tell us a little bit about yourself. Help us understand you a little more.
I was in the restaurant business for years and years, and it was a family business, and I loved it until I didn't love it. And what happened back in 2008, I read a book called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, and I was stuck. I was in a rut. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, they've gone through this in their life. They call it a midlife crisis. I don't want to call it that. I'm 38 years old and I'm stuck. I'm like, what is my next move? The recession's upon us. I'm working harder. I'm making less. I don't feel fulfilled. I feel trapped. What do I need to do? And I read his book, and the thing that dawned on me, Kendra, is I have to start taking responsibility for my actions. I had to stop being a victim. I had to stop blaming other people and other circumstances. And that led me down the rabbit hole of real estate, personal development, and life coaching and all that. And that's when I think my life started to change. Once I started to take responsibility and I started looking into mindset and personal development, I think everything completely changed for me.
You're speaking my language right now because I've gone down this rabbit hole myself. Like I just, every time somebody tells me about a book, I just wrote down the one that you said. I have been reading them like crazy. I got to share some of this list really quick just because I'm just devouring. So right now I'm reading As a Man Thinketh, but then I just finished The Slight Edge, The Magic of Thinking Big, and just keep adding to those, the 4-Hour Work Week over and over. And I'm like, this is fascinating. I love this stuff. So you got into that space too. You were in there. And then did it take very long, this transformation? Walk us through that a little bit.
In 2007, my father had passed away, and I had been working with him since I was 7 years old. So I was at the restaurant, his restaurant, and then we bought our own family restaurant. I was with him for my entire life. And when he died, I really had to ask the question, am I living his dream or am I living my dream? And I loved working with him. And when he wasn't there anymore, I sort of didn't enjoy it. And then the recession comes on, and I just feel, like I said, once again, really stuck. I didn't feel as if I had options. And my book is titled Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy. And people think that money is what makes you happy, right? It's not really the love of money or the money itself. It's what money can provide. And the one word that I did not have in my life back then was autonomy. And I think that's what money provides. It gives us the autonomy. It gives us the options to make choices. I had to go to work at the restaurant to provide for my family. I had no autonomy other than that. Now with the real estate, it's a little different. I can take a day off. I can write a book. I can go shopping in the middle of the afternoon. I couldn't do these things when I had my restaurant. And it's not that it's right or wrong. I think people need to understand what money can provide and what it can't provide. I lacked that autonomy back then. And once I started understanding that, and I started understanding the power of our thoughts, you talked about the magic of thinking big, the way we speak to ourselves and the thoughts that we put in our minds. We talk about this in coaching. We call it our energy blocks. Most of our energy blocks are, believe it or not, internal, about 95%. 5% of them are external. What's going on in the economy, right? What's going on with tariffs and trade and the recession. That's obviously going to have an impact. But the vast majority of what holds us back are our beliefs, our interpretations, how we interpret things in life, our assumptions. And in the fourth energy block, the largest one is our gremlins, those scary things, those things we say to ourselves in our mind every day. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. I'm a pizza guy. Who's going to give a pizza guy money to invest in real estate? These are things that ultimately really hold us back. And if we aren't really honest with ourselves and dive deeper and start working on those things, it's going to be a very challenging way to continue to grow in life.
Absolutely. So walk us through those energy blocks. There's 4 of them, you said? Gremlins, limiting beliefs. What did you say?
We call them the Gales at IPEC. I went to IPEC, got my certification there about 10 years ago, and they call them the Gales. So the first one is a limiting belief. It's the smallest energy block. I know I don't have any money. It takes money to make money. Money doesn't grow on trees. On my very first real estate deal, we did a seller finance deal. The seller held part of the down payment as a mortgage. I didn't need money for 10% of the down payment. All of a sudden, that limiting belief was shattered. I used somebody else's money. right? So once a limiting belief is established and you're able to shatter that, the biggest one that we were taught back when I went to school was Roger Bannister when he ran the 4 minute mile. Before Roger Bannister ran the 4 minute mile back in the 1950s, it was unheard of. Your heart was going to explode. Once he ran at minutes 59 seconds, a month later, we had 5 or 6 people running it. That's what happens with the limiting belief. It's just challenging it, right? And for me, I had a lot of limiting beliefs getting into real estate. Where am I going to get the money? In real estate, there's also something called syndication, where you can raise money from other investors. So if you have this limiting belief and you don't even explore the options, remember, your behaviors are belief driven. If you believe that you need money to get into real estate, you won't even start it. But once you that limiting belief, it's over. You can continue to progress in that path that you've chosen. Now, the next one is the interpretation, how you interpret certain scenarios in life. And this is going all throughout the day. Instead of getting the real answer, people like to interpret things through their own maps, through their own paradigms, right? And it's important. You're in real estate, you're just starting out, you pick up the phone, you call somebody, or you text somebody. Nowadays, people text. I like to talk, but people text. The broker doesn't call you back. You can interpret that in one of two ways. I'm a newbie. He or she doesn't want to talk to me. I've got no credibility. That's one way to interpret it. Or maybe the broker's busy. Maybe he or she's on vacation. Just be careful of how you interpret certain situations in life, because if you believe that first one, you're not going to act and continue to work on your real estate business. So interpretations really hold you back. And if you don't understand and get to the root of that interpretation, what is it? My wife one day took a walk to the beach and she was thinking about becoming a coach herself. And she was so excited. And within 5 minutes of her texting me, hey, do you think it's a great idea of me becoming a coach? I obviously was working that day. Phone is off. Didn't get the text. She had 15 different ideas going in her mind. He thinks it's a dumb idea. He thinks I'm going to be terrible. So she walks back from the beach and she goes, hey, did you get my text? I said, nope. I looked at the phone. I said, that would be a great idea. I think you should definitely do it. So beware of how you're interpreting every situation or scenario that you're going through in life. Now, the third one is the A, the assumption. And this is really, to me, a challenging one, because an assumption is something that's happened to you. For instance, on my very first real estate deal with a partner, mitigated disaster, I lost $172,000 on that very first deal. Now, if I assume that real estate's risky and I assume that partnerships are bad, I wouldn't be here. I had to work through that assumption. Was the real estate risky, or was the partner bad, or was I part of that problem? And that's what I think a lot of people make these assumptions in life, that something happened to them earlier in their life, that they assume it to be true. If that's how you live life, it's going to be very hard to be able to grow in that area of your life. Obviously, when I looked at that relationship with that partner, it was horrible. But part of that problem was on myself. I didn't know the business. I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't understand all the things that go into what a partnership is supposed to look like. And for me, once I understood that, oh, how do I learn about the real estate business? That's when I got into mentorship. How do I learn how to select a partner? All of a sudden, you start learning what to look for in a partner. And I think things change. And the last one is the G, is the gremlin. That's that little voice in your head. That's the challenging one. The voice never goes away. You just have to tame the voice and be playful with it. For me, it was hard because, like I said, I was the pizza guy. Who is going to give a pizza guy money to invest in real estate? And for me, it was just daily work, every day working and becoming much better at my craft. And once I was able to do that, I got the confidence to go and ask one of our partners, hey, would you like to join the team? We've got some great opportunities. And in understanding how to work with the gremlin and flesh it out and to say, is that true? And when I look around, and when you look around the world and you see all of these companies and all of these businesses that have started, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Dell, whether it's Apple, they all started in the same situation that I started in. They had no experience and they had no money. And if they can do it, what's holding me back from me doing it?
I love that. And I feel like it's things that we can break down and we can all work on. Do you mind breaking that down for me? You said you have 6 kids. What about for parents? Maybe they're not in real estate. Maybe they're doing something else and they're just starting this journey. Can you think of any examples how that might apply?
When you're getting married, You and the spouse are the most important, I think, dynamic of the relationship. It's great to get advice from others, but ultimately it comes down to the both of you making that decision. And in the book, I talk about it from the money experience. And I think you need to be completely open and communicative with your spouse. And for my wife and I, we weren't. With the money situation, she grew up a certain way and I grew up a different way. Her mom, single mom, 3 kids, 3 jobs, never really had money. They never really valued money. Money came in, money went out, right? They avoided money a lot. Whereas me, immigrant parents, both business owners, really great savers. So when we get together and we get married, we're coming from different environments, from different experiences. I want to save money because I'm the provider and I don't want to run out and I have the scarcity mindset. It'll be there. God will provide for us. And I'm like, that's not how it works in my life. So if you are married or you're in that process, you need to really sit down and talk about your experiences and don't judge the person. That's how she grew up, and that's how money was taught in her house. I'm trying to show her what it looks like for me. And at some point, we came about, and I said, hey, Julia, I just want to become financially free. I want to be able to save enough money and make enough money every month not to worry about the bills. Hey, your mom needs her car fixed this month. Let's give her the credit card. And once she understood that, and I painted her the picture, that was great. And as far as with children, we had it really tough early on because she wanted to homeschool the kids. Now, homeschooling is great nowadays, right? Everyone, you're the cool kid on the block homeschooling. But back in the early 2000s, people looked at you like you had 3 eyes and you had 3 legs. It was just the reality. We were just weird. And my family was really against it. Her family was like, whatever. My wife, out of the 6 kids, 4 of them, she gave birth at home. Nowadays, it might be a little bit more prevalent, whereas years ago, it wasn't. And I really wasn't comfortable with it. But ultimately, I'm like, she's making the decision. It's her body. She's really healthy. You need to sit down and have these conversations. And it really comes down to your values. And I always like to say, my mentor taught me it's values-based decision making. All the decisions that you make in your life should be based upon your values. We valued the responsibility. We valued to have our kids at home. We wanted to have that. And the school system at that time didn't work for us because I was working on the weekends at the restaurant. So that means my kids would be home and then I wouldn't be with them. Whereas with homeschooling, I could spend time with them as I was home during the week a lot more. So for couples starting out, families starting out, really map out your values, what you truly value, and then have those discussions. And I think money is a challenging one. Don't be afraid to talk about money with your kids. Don't avoid it. Because if you do avoid it and you talk about it in a negative way, they're learning from you. It's going to be encoded in their DNA. So when they get older, they're going to have challenges with it as well.
Yeah. That's another question I have about that. I have a senior right now, and she's going to be starting college. And I've been thinking a lot more about those things. Like we've had some conversations, but she's more of a spender, maybe more like your wife than the rest of us. And I really wanted to learn those skills. So what do you do to teach your kids to have a money mindset that will help them have that autonomy that you talked about?
It's interesting. I would get down to the diagnosis of why your daughter likes to spend money. That's the first thing. So in the book, we talk about the 5 personas: Steve the spender, Sarah the saver, Ivan the investor, George the gambler, and Amy the avoider. And predominantly, you're one of those 5. But then you have a mix of other ones. I was Steve the saver. I was great at saving money. I was just born to save money. And my mom taught me that. Save for a rainy day. Don't know why it's not for a sunny day, but it's always for a rainy day. So the mindset was always scarcity. But then I started to understand having that money saved there when I needed it, I was really afraid to touch it. So then I started shifting the mindset from, okay, I'm going to save money to buy an asset, to buy a real estate property that will generate money for me. Now, for your daughter, I would say to her, it's challenging with younger kids, but in the book, we talk about the happy chemicals. So she probably gets a dopamine rush. She feels like when she's stressed or she's feeling down, to get excited, to get happy, she goes out and she'll buy something. She'll spend a little bit more money. Some people do it with cigarettes. Some people do it with alcohol. Some people do it with drugs. food, whatever it is. It's a temporary feeling. And it's interesting because with spending money, nowadays they've made it so easy. I grew up in the era where I used cash. And maybe you try that with her. Give her cash for the week. This is all that you can spend. Have some type of psychological pain when you're spending the money. It's too easy to spend money right now. They've had studies where if you're using credit cards, you're going to spend at least on average 20% more than you would with cash. It's very interesting what that is. Every child is different. I have 6 kids. They are all unique. They are all very different. But I do want them to become more responsible with their money. I don't mind if they spend it. I want them to enjoy it. I want to teach them the difference between what a need is and what a want is. If you can distinguish that, it's, oh, okay. And I also want to tell them that if you have $100 and that TV costs $100 and you are making $20 an hour, that TV just cost 5 hours of your life. Is that TV worth 5 hours of your life? Only you can answer that. I may say, yeah, I'm willing to do that because I'm going to use that. And someone else may say, no, I don't want to do that. The whole idea is to try to teach them these skills so that at some point you're not making the decision for them. They have the ability to make those decisions for themselves. And for me, when it comes to spending money, I think you just need to really enjoy to spend the money. Because for me, for years, I didn't enjoy spending money. I could enjoy spending money on others. But when it came to spending money myself, it was a lot more challenging. Now I've crossed that hurdle and now I love to spend it because it's less of a relief because I have more of it to spend. But don't take the time that I did. I'm thinking of needs versus wants. For your daughter, having that conversation now is so important because as she becomes an adult, it's so easy to spend money in this economy. Amazon, one button. It's incredible how we have so many options and so many different subscriptions. I have Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. I have Paramount. We have Disney. It's incredible when they say you're going to get rid of your cable bill. It'll be a lot cheaper. Well, it's not a lot cheaper. But the incredible thing is just write everything down, have an understanding and go through it every month. You should be having a spending plan and going through your spending plan. And it's not, I don't like calling it a budget because it's not restrictive. It's just the ability to have your income over your expenses. Run your household like you would run a business. And I think most people don't understand that. If you have $10 coming in, I mean, you should have $9 going out and maybe $1 going to savings. That's what every household should aspire to. As you make more money should go towards saving and more money should go towards investing. And in the baseline, you should try to build that financial foundation. That's what should be going on. More importantly, it's just the idea to be able to direct your resources and to say, hey, I've got this much money to spend. I should only be able to go out to dinner 3 times this month. Where do I want to go? I only have $100 this month to be able to spend on subscriptions. Is Ring worth it for me? Is Netflix worth it for me? Is Paramount worth it for me? It really does not matter how much money you have. My business partner is super wealthy and he was complaining about a bill that he's paying for Paramount, $8 a month. It's the mindset because he doesn't want to waste the money, right? He's being a financial steward for his money and he doesn't want to become sloppy with wasting it because whether you're wasting or $8,000, I think to me, it ultimately comes down to mindset and becoming really responsible with the assets and with the money that you have.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the avoider, because I don't think I understand that one quite as much.
Oh, that's a tricky one because when you're at the house, you're 9, you're 10, you're 11 years old. And if you want to figure out or think about who you are, go back into your childhood, go back into those memories. What did you hear about money? And the avoider never heard about money. They never talked about money. And it's interesting because you're sitting at the table and you feel the tension of your family. You feel the tension of mom and dad. It's a rough month. They didn't do well financially this month. And they're just avoiding talking about it completely. And they're paralyzed. And money has that negative connotation. So when you become an adult, all of a sudden you get married and one of the spouses takes care of the money and does everything. And the other one has no idea. Now, is that good or bad? I don't know if that's good or bad. That was my life for many years. We made decisions together on certain things, but I really ran the financial household of it. And it was a burden. And sometimes I didn't discuss it with her about why I was doing that. But the avoider doesn't like to open up the credit card bills. The avoider doesn't like really hard to make decisions based upon money. And they may not know why. It's because they were never really taught, they were never really discussed. Money is just a result. That's all it is. The better you are in life, the more money you're going to make. LeBron James is a billionaire because he's one of the best basketball players ever. That's the reality. Money is just a result. I think when you're struggling with money and you're seeing other people making it, to me, I look at money as a way to fuel other things that I want. And when I looked at money and this real estate thing, I always said that profit was the fuel. It's not the destination. I don't want to stop and just say I'm doing this job just for money. That's unhappy money. That's what I was doing at the restaurant. I had to go to work. I had to pay the bills. And that's what ultimately leads to that negative energy of unhappy money. And a lot of us get on that. And then all of a sudden we start making excuses and we start creating those assumptions. I've been doing this forever. I'm just stuck in the rat race. Another day, another dollar. But if you're an avoider of money, have a really internal conversation with yourself on why are you avoiding talking about the topic. It's something we all need. And that may spill over to a lot of other areas in your life where you're not making real important decisions. Because ultimately, if you're not making a decision, guess what? You're still making a decision not to decide, which is probably even worse. Does that make
I,
sense?
yeah, definitely. I feel like I can relate to a lot of those or see those aspects in some of my kids. I have 4 kids. And I loved in the beginning, you talked about excuses, taking more accountability. And that's when there was really this shift for you. So, what about for listeners, Gina? How can we start to shift that mindset or simple things that we can do to change our lives if we're feeling stuck, if we're feeling like in a rut like you were?
This is what I did, Kendra, when I started. I'll never forget this. It was in '08. It was that presidential election. I was getting so overloaded with so much of the news. And back then, it wasn't like it is now. Now it's 100 times worse. I literally had to detach myself from all the noise. And I remember driving in my car because back then we had CDs. So I threw CDs in my car and I would listen to Tony Robbins and I would listen to Zig Ziglar and I'd listen to Jim Rome. That's all I listened to. And that's it. What you put into your mind, I think, is so undervalued for people. If you're on Instagram scrolling all the time, you're on somebody else's agenda, you're on somebody else's attention. And for me, listening to those three, it was life changing for me. And I think you need to assess the people that you're surrounding yourself with. And unfortunately, at the restaurant, I was surrounding myself with, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but I was surrounding myself with waitresses, cooks, bus boys, people that weren't going to elevate me to where I wanted to go. They weren't business leaders, but that doesn't mean that I had to stay there. What I ended up doing was I ended up going to coaching school. I ended up going out to different meetups. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to do that. Whereas years ago, it was a lot more challenging. Maybe the Chamber of Commerce, maybe your local. But nowadays, you have the platform to go to different events, different seminars, take different courses. You can get certified in coaching for $500. It's amazing what you can do. But I think it all starts with shutting out all the noise. You have to detach yourself from that because it's not serving you. It's really just their agenda. All they're trying to do is, and they're doing really good at it, they're just trying to create some type of danger, some type of fear. And that's where your frontal lobe goes to. And it gets attracted. And you start listening to that. And you start getting into that loop. And you start worrying. None of that is serving you. For me, the book Mindset by Carol Dweck was a life changer for me. Between the fixed and the growth mindset, I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense. You know, you look at a guy like Michael Jordan, take a look at what he did. He quit basketball at the pinnacle of his career to go play baseball. And he was Major League Baseball player. And everyone says that was a failure. I'm like, this guy was incredible. Even to be at that level, he had the growth mindset. He continued to take challenges. And I think for a lot of us, self-esteem comes into it. When we're children, I was watching a little kid at the YWCA yesterday. My kids had volleyball on Saturday. This little kid was 3 years old. He was shooting a basketball. He was missing. He looked like a fool in front of everybody, but he didn't care because he was having the time of his life. And I think that's how we learn. If we can adopt that childlike mentality, like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about us. We're here to learn. And that's why adults at certain times, they have the fear of learning because they don't want to look bad. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks about you. Worry about what you value and worry about where you want to get better in life. And I think if you can turn off all that noise and start focusing on, I guess, yourself and what your goals are, things will get a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you spoke to that because often it's those very simple answers. And I was thinking about what it would be if I were to give somebody the main tool that would really help them. Like in therapy, they want all these tools, these quick fixes. And I think for me, it was going on walks and listening to those types of books, those mindset books, all of the ones that you
Yes.
listed. Love Tony Robbins, love Zig Ziglar, love Jim Rohn. And those small shifts when I felt stuck, I think I had postpartum depression at one point, and I started
Uh,
listening to those other self-help books. And I think I was getting outside, I was listening to something out, getting outside of my head, not being so focused on the problem, but shifting. And in
yes.
that came that accountability finally, instead of pointing those fingers. And you talked about who are you surrounding yourself with? I've been thinking a lot about that lately. And sometimes just where you're living, you're not necessarily surrounded by growth minded people or people with big visions and dreams. And I want more of that tribe. And I'm like getting back into that
Yes.
victim mindset. Sometimes I'm like, they're too hard to find. I can't find them. It's hopeless. But
Yes.
just that's exactly what you're saying. So much
It's
easier than ever
interesting.
before. Yeah.
It is interesting because when you're a victim, you tend to attract people who have the victim mentality, and that's the reality. And I'm not here to say my family member is this way, so I'm going to shut them out. No, you just don't engage in certain topics. You just stay civil. But at the same time, it's up to you to say, for me, I wanted to be around business leaders. And what did I end up doing? I ended up creating a community, the Jake and Gino community, a real estate community over 10 years ago. We started the podcast, and I was like, if I can't find one, I'm going to create one. So it's one of those where you can choose. And for me, it's so important. Jim Rohn does say it's such an important quote, and it's so popular. The five people that surround you, that are around you. I'm lucky because I have my wife and I've got Jake. So those are two of the five. So for me, that's really all I need, to be honest. But I think just assess who you have around you, assess who's giving you advice. I always hate it when I hear people tell me that real estate's risky. Have you ever done a deal before? No, but how would you know if it's risky? You're taking advice from somebody that's never done it before. Like you should be taking advice from somebody who has done it. So I think that's an important distinction as well.
I love so many of the things that you break down, and especially that Gale. So, gremlin, assumption, interpretation, limiting belief, analyzing those. And if you could give us any, could pick your brain for hours, I'm sure, but if you could give us some last advice on, as parents, maybe wanting to get out of this, some of these things that you talked about, what would you say is like a takeaway that maybe you haven't spoken to yet, or just want to reiterate a little bit more on that one thing that we can focus on to move forward instead of living in that mediocrity that's really not giving us maybe the autonomy that we want or allowing us to live within our values.
I thought therapy years ago was nonsense, was rubbish. And I thought, and when I went to coaching school, they poo pooed therapy, which I thought at the beginning, okay, maybe. You always got to need to think to look forward. Coaching is all about creating a plan and going forward. And then I met a gentleman named Phil McKernan several years ago. And Phil McKernan, if you haven't don't know him, you should check him out. He's phenomenal. He calls himself a clarity coach. But we went on a trip a couple of years ago to Ireland, and it was his brand is called Brave. And therapy is so needed. I think if you have listening to this, you haven't done therapy, you should do some therapy. You should go back into your childhood. You should go back into your past. We've all had traumatic experiences, and some people may have trauma around money. I think Amy the Avoider probably has some trauma around money. And if you don't explore the past, because you're making these decisions today and you don't know why, and they're unconscious, and you have this pain and you haven't healed, I think you need to go back. I think you need to be able to talk to somebody about it. I think that's important. But I also think it's important to find a coach. And once you've worked with that, and it takes a while, Phil likes to say you need to sit with it. You need to sit with these emotions. Most of us who are type A, we've diagnosed a problem. We're going to solve it as quickly as possible, and then we're going to move on. That's not how it works. You need a little bit of time. You need to sit with it, but don't sit with it too long for the next 20 years and not do anything. There needs to be I think, a blend or a mix. And for me, working through my family situation, working through when you were younger, getting bullied, working through a lot of that stuff. And then all of a sudden you're saying, oh, I've been doing this for so long. And why have I been doing it? And it's liberating and working through that. And then work with the coach to plan your future. And it's important because you may be making all these decisions based on the future on a false pretense of something that happened to you in the past. and you can't make that connection. I want to become a millionaire because I didn't have any money when I was young, or because my father was a loser. I'm going to do the opposite of what he's doing. That is empowering. You may hit the goal, but is that what's life is all about? To be able to hit a goal because you think it's the right goal? No, make sure it's the right goal and it's the right reason. Don't build an empire and then find out you built out this empire and that's not what you really wanted to do. So if you can have the ability to do both, have some therapy and coaching and put those together, to me, it's a much more powerful strategy or tool.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It definitely is a game changer and helps you work through some of those limiting beliefs or some of those things that you talked about in that GALE acronym as well. And I do
Mhm.
have one other tiny question for you.
Sure.
Uh, what's a simple thing that you've done to create greater fulfillment in your life recently?
I bought a farm.
Really?
Yes. About a year ago, we'd been looking for a little while. Up in New York, I had 5 acres. We had chickens. I had a nice garden. I'm Italian. So Italians, we do gardening and all that kind of stuff. And when I moved to Florida, I'm 300 feet from the beach and I love it. But I just felt as if I was missing nature. I was missing put my hands in the dirt. So we bought a farm last year. It's a little over 6 acres. I have too many donkeys now. I have a cow. We got 30 chickens. I have a nice big vegetable garden. We just got honeybees last week. I stocked the pond with fish. So in a year, I've been very busy. And for me, I want my kids to be outside and to teach them nature, but it's also awesome. It's such a great lifestyle to have. And being at the beach is awesome, but being on a farm, being in nature, it's just incredible.
And how's that connected to your core values?
For me, responsibility. I want to lead a healthier life. I'm growing my own produce. I'm raising my own meat. I have my own eggs. I think it's just that I want to teach my kids, and as they become adults, they love it. We've got a little pottery shed. We've got a kiln. So it's a lot of stuff that the kids have always wanted to do. Incorporating that actually great because we are all there all together, and it really aligns with our family values of spending time picking crops, the kitchen, cooking together, and having a meal afterwards. So it's really aligns well with our core values.
That sounds amazing. Maybe not all of the work for that, but just the family
It's a
part.
lot of work.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, though. Thank you so much, Gina, for coming on the show and sharing some of these priceless things that will help us get unstuck ourselves to help us stop being those victims and move into more autonomy or living according to our values. I really appreciate you speaking to that and coming on the show today.
Thank you, Kendra. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And can you tell us where we can find you?
Oh, Barbaro360.com. Barbaro 360.com.
Wonderful. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.